All right, it is the 615 Sessions podcast. Teresa Walker's already talking shit. Emily Proud of WKRN News 2 is here. Hello, ladies. How are we on this Friday?
Absolutely perfect, Buck. How are you besides you struggling to get the tech going today?
My tech is fine, Teresa. I just didn't have my headphones on in time for you to start chirping at me. But lucky for you, we got at least the next 30 minutes to do so.
It's 3:02, Teresa. I know your standards are high, but we're meeting at 3.
I mean,
so I think if we're going ahead and just throwing out the things that we find wrong with Buck, while I'm here, you have a person now. You have like a receptionist or something texting us to set this up.
Oh, notice that he has a person.
Well, my favorite is I received 2 text messages at the same time earlier this week. Okay. One from your person and then one from you, Buck. I was like, why don't you just ask me while we're talking?
Well,
power move, right?
All right. So producer Reed, who handles everything for me on the A to Z side, and producer Lucas, who handles everything for me on the radio side, and then producer Adam, who does all the digital stuff. So I have people to make my life
3 people, Emily.
I have people now to make my life easier. I'm trying to be efficient, and instead I get trash talked. I'm sorry. Next time I'll do it personally. I apologize if I've offended either of you.
Well, I thought it was funny.
Emily, I didn't hear from Buck. I only heard from his person. So, apparently I've been trash talking you too much, Buck.
No, the only reason, not that I wouldn't talk and have a conversation with Emily under normal circumstances. The only reason that I was initially talking to Emily is because a bunch of frat boys turned her attendance tweet into a 69 joke. So, there was cause there for the tweet. 419. That's the thing. Like, everybody's trying to make a 69 420 tweet, but it was 419. So you went viral for something that wasn't even good. I mean, not that it wasn't
the
good,
whole point was that they were one person shy. So I loved there was a lot of voting references, like, don't tell me one person can't make a difference. This is why you show up to the polls, people. Like, it was comical, but then it just took over my Twitter account, and I'm still getting some traction on it. It's like, come on, people.
Well, and here I thought I wouldn't be able to work a stop the count joke into today's podcast, but we got plenty of time for everything. No, the Titans are going to host the Kansas City Chiefs. Big win on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills. Both Teresa and Emily were in attendance. And now this game against Kansas City, guys, I've really, for some reason, I've had trouble squaring up with this one. Like, under normal circumstances, I don't do game predictions, but there's just something about this game that I just can't really put my finger on. And I don't know how well equipped they are at this point, given all that they may be lacking potentially. We don't know for sure how many of those guys marked as questionable on the injury report won't actually go on Sunday. But Teresa, this Chiefs team is different than previous years. And I still don't think we've seen the full measure of the Titans in 2021. We
haven't, but I'll say this. What we have seen out of the Chiefs, I mean, Patrick Mahomes has more interceptions over the last, through this part of the season than either of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you have a Chiefs defense that is giving up 29.3 points a game. I mean, that's, it's not good. A year ago, we were, chattering on and on about how bad the Titans defense was. Well, the Chiefs, the number that jumps out at me is there's another one. Red zone. They are giving up, wrong Buck. Sorry. They're giving up over.
Now who's not ready?
Well, mine is in my bag to be at the game on Sunday, but no, but the number is 77.6%, I believe, in the red zone for the Chiefs. So they're giving up tons of points. Mahomes has turned over the ball more than they have, and they can't stop. If you get into the red zone, they can't stop them. So the Titans, while their defense is, maybe not as good as you'd like it to be, it's way improved from last year. And if it comes down to a field goal or so at the end of the game, I'm going to lean toward the team that has shown us, that has led the NFL under Mike Vrabel in fourth quarter comebacks and overtime comebacks, or the ability to finish off a win when they have a lead. So, those are 2 characteristics that are pretty strong. And, yes, Tyreek Hill, he practiced today, but he's questionable. So, they've had their injury report is longer than the Titans right now. So that's been incredibly rare over the last month. So there you go.
Which is a difficult feat to accomplish, a longer injury report than this particular team. But just a quick update before I let Emily go. The Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, who missed practice time this week due to a neck, is off the injury report and expected to play versus the Titans on Sunday. Tyreek Hill, listed as questionable and who missed practice time throughout the course of the week, is likely to play with the quad. That's per Adam Schefter just about 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, this game feels somewhat like a media trap game, and that you can kind of look at what the Chiefs have looked like over the last couple of games and think, oh, this is not the Chiefs of old. This team is vulnerable. This is a time that the Titans can come in and beat them. Thankfully, what we've seen from the Titans is they don't care who's lined up against them. They're just going to play however they decide they want to play that day, whether it's how they showed up in New York against the Jets or how they showed up on Monday Night Football this week. And so that's what makes it so difficult to just predict the Titans in general. But then also with the Chiefs, there are kind of, I bring up the phrase of it's, the media trap, is that you look at some of these numbers by themselves and they look bad, like the interceptions, but you look at some of those interceptions and I would not put them all on Patrick Mahomes. Some of his receivers have bobbled the ball and put him in those precarious situations. I also think it's really easy to make the connection that because the defense is struggling so much, it's forced Patrick Mahomes to do more and to push the ball down the field. They're an incredibly efficient offense. They're still very high scoring. They have to be if they want to win any games because of their defense. But they're not, just because they're not the incredibly unreasonable standard that they've set for themselves under Patrick Mahomes over the last 2 years, doesn't mean that they're failing or they're bad or anything like that. But it is incredibly rare, to have the Titans not have the longest injury report against the two teams, but also for the Titans defense to step out on the field and be the better defensive unit, especially considering what we've seen out of the secondary and the struggles that they're dealing with in terms of injury. And even though it's not that lengthy of an injury report, I say it's helped by guys going to IR. If you had those guys still on the injury report, it would make it just as long, but they have the longest injury. They have the longest IR in the NFL. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. So I think you just have to kind of look at these things objectively. And that's what makes it so difficult to predict this game, is because you keep getting talked out of one statistic by seeing another. And that's just what it's been like trying to predict what the Tennessee Titans are going to do.
Teresa, you look like I had a thought.
I did. Well, here's two things. Well, there's been a lot of roster changeover. There's two things. This team always seems to play to the level of its competition. And we are looking at the Chiefs. They are the they've hosted 5-time AFC West champs. They've hosted the AFC Championship the last 3 years. Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, key players were on that team that lost in Kansas City. So you mix those two components together. This just seems to be a game that I know that we've seen the Titans kind of roller coaster at times. And yes, they're coming off a short week against a big win. But, this just feels like the kind of game that, now Chiefs may absolutely win it, but it just feels like this is going to be a game where, maybe the Titans actually fix their first quarter issues and show us that they can start a game actually driving down the field and getting a touchdown. They don't have one of those this year. So if they can put those two components together, and they have a pass rush that they have not had at all last year. So, Harold Landry, guys, he already has one more sack than he had all of last season. So I can look at this and yes, Patrick Mahomes, dangerous. Tyreek Hill, the cheetah. He's running loose everywhere. They have the Travis Kelce. But as Kevin Byard said the other day, when asked about Travis Kelce, he said, we'll see on Sunday. So, I think, I hate to drop with that, but, some of this just feels like I think the Titans have the ability to go out there and, crazily enough, string another big home win together, which would quietly, they've won 4 of the last 5. Think about this. That would be their 3rd straight win and 5 of 6. And suddenly they'd be sitting really pretty near the top of the AFC.
I honest to God think that's why I'm conflicted about this, because I, for once in my life, feel good about the Titans against an opponent that's probably, that should be better than them, but on paper is not better than them, not in terms of turnover differential, not in terms of the defensive ability, not in terms of the pass rush, not in terms of points per game allowed, none of this stuff. And it's not adding up because the dude on the other side of them is still Patrick Mahomes. So I think that's where I'm kind of short circuiting on this. But I guess through 6 weeks of the NFL season, Teresa, and I'll start with you in this regard. What's most surprised you about the Titans? Because I don't think you can say Harold Landry, because the pressures have been there throughout the course of the last 3 years. It's just the fact that now he's allowed that extra fraction of a second to get home, because Simmons and Autry and at times Dupree, but not often, there are at least other people to attract some attention and help make his life just a little bit easier.
And that's the thing. He's in his 4th year. I go back to training camp when Ryan Crowe said he kind of challenged him to not use his favorite move and to work on some others. So, and that maybe that's part of it, or maybe it's just the simple maturation, but he is finishing some of these things. And, the fact he's had 2 sacks in each of the last 2 weeks. Now, we know that getting Patrick Mahomes on the ground is challenging, but, as Jeffrey Simmons told us, they know, particularly with Patrick Mahomes, yes, flashbacks to Kyler Murray in the opener, but he's a smaller enough quarterback that if you're getting your hands up, you can affect balls. Danico Autry, which Mike Vrabel's talked about a lot this week. This must be his favorite play from Monday night, about how Danico Autry affected the quarterback, Josh Allen, leading to Kevin Byard's interceptions. So, getting their hands on more balls is a huge focus, has been for a month now. But, this is a quarterback that, he starts to let it go, that sidearm action, get those hands out, knock some stuff down. So I'm looking forward to what this defense can do. And here's the thing. The challenge with the Chiefs, of course, is that they can have a really great night and still give up 30 points.
Yeah. And what surprised you most through 6 weeks?
Is this a positive surprise or a negative surprise?
As you like.
Does it matter?
As you like.
Oh, that's too much freedom. I don't know. No, I mean, I want to be positive, but I feel like we're at the point in the season where it is incredibly nitpicky, and the things that they are doing well are things that they have been doing well. Like the most positive thing I would say is the fact that they're never out of these games and they just continue to come back. But that doesn't surprise me, because that's kind of been the MO of Ryan Tannehill ever since he took over as the starter. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I guess what surprises me the most is the strides that the defense has made in terms of being solid in the red zone and being solid down the stretch. That they've gotten stronger throughout games. They're the epitome of bend but don't break. Yes, they still give up a lot of yards. They gave up over 400 yards on Monday, but they defended well when it mattered, and that's in the red zone, and that's at the end of games, and just that kind of clutch gene that they've missed. And I think the reason that it's been so absent is because of the third down defense. I mean, that's the money down. And if you're not good on that, then it's hard to describe you as clutch. And so the fact that they have been so clutch in the red zone and where it matters, I think that's been the most pleasant surprise. In terms of a negative surprise is, gosh, it's taken them a while to start games. I did not expect that it would be this slow of starts to start the season. I thought that this would be something that it would do a good job of starting off a lot faster. It surely makes it exciting, but it would be nice to, not start behind, especially when most of your offense is giving the ball to Derrick Henry. We know that doesn't deter them from running the ball, even if they are behind. So thankfully they don't get away from that. But this is a team that is good at playing with a lead, and just haven't seen a whole lot of that yet.
Am I dumb for not caring about yardage allowed? I don't care how many yards they give up. I care about red zone defense. I care about turnover differential. I think people get too caught up in those numbers, and I don't think I'm alone in that regard.
No, you can't score any points on the 50-yard line like that. It all that matters is the points that you give up. As long as your team is scoring more points than the other one, that absolutely is more important. And I feel like it also kind of crushes you too, right? We saw just mentally, if you work so hard, you're moving the ball well, and all of a sudden it just stalls in the red zone. We saw how that tortured the Titans in New York, and that they just kept kicking field goals, and it's discouraging because you are moving it well, and you're like, what happens as soon as we get to the part of the field where we can actually put some points on the board? And so, yeah, it's incredibly discouraging, and it's conversely incredibly exciting when it comes to being a defense and being able to stop them where it really matters and get those huge stops. You see what that does for the confidence of this defense, and a defense that frankly needs some confidence. So it's good for them and definitely bad for opponents.
Well, yeah, I mean, it helps that the only place that they can go is up. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, that whole idea, I mean, look what it did to the Bills the other night. That defense held them to 2 field goals to open the game. It should have been 14-0. And instead it's 6-0. And it only took one Derrick Henry run to suddenly, change things around a little bit. So, and then they made the play at the end, so this is the modern NFL, okay? This idea, Jeff Fisher's 13-10 wins. Sorry, it's going to be 20s. Look at this team. They averaged in the 30s last year, and they were the 4th highest scoring team in the NFL. This year the defense has made a massive improvement. They're 15th on third down defense, and yet they're only around 40%. And then you're like, wait a minute, that's not really great, is it? Maybe 45%. And it's like, it's not a huge improvement from last year statistically, but effectively, look around the rest of the league. Everybody is scoring. Everybody is struggling at times to stop teams. And it's those stops in the red zone that absolutely matter the most.
Well, and that's a good point that you bring up, because I think that's one of the things that I was most curious about going from the COVID season without fans in the stands and really that lack of home field advantage being present, and how that would translate back into 2021 now that you have crowds back in the stands, now that you have things able to disrupt an offense. Would the point scoring go down? Would offenses look different this season? And for the most part, the answer is no. And I honestly think it's skewed, Teresa, by the fact that there's a hell of a lot more teams comfortable going for it on 4th down. So it's not just what your 3rd down percentage is anymore. It's what you're doing on those clutch downs, on those critical downs. And it's 2 out of the 4 at this point.
I don't know if you guys, since we were all at the game, we weren't watching the broadcast, but going back and watching the broadcast, I was shocked by how little of a conversation it was. It was just, oh, they're going for it on 4th down at the end of the game. It was not, usually you bring up analytics and is this the right decision? Do you want to put, and it's very easy to debate that after the fact. And it was very easy to debate it in the moment too. But I think that shows just how far we have gone as the National Football League, and that it's really not that big of a controversial decision. Yes, obviously in hindsight, it becomes way more controversial and people debate it all week long, and I'm pretty sure they still are now. But the fact that that wasn't something that was immediately brought up in real time is exactly what you're saying, Buck, is it's become more normal.
Well, and a part of that, go ahead.
Sorry,
Teresa.
Buck. The offenses are so explosive. You use every part of the field. If you're, now going for it on 4th down on your side of the field when it's like, 30, 35 yard line, that's stupid. But when you're at midfield or closer, why not?
And that also brings up something that, and listen, easy to throw stones from a glass house, but like, I feel like when I go back and watch these television broadcasts, I end up getting frustrated because I feel, one, obviously we cover the team on a hyper-local basis, so we know a hell of a lot more about these teams than your average media person might. But from the standpoint of what's happening on the broadcast, as opposed to how much deeper dive you can get from any number of resources across social media or across everywhere that's producing sports content right now, I feel like there's a lack of that in the middle of these broadcasts outside of it, the highest level, whether it's Monday Night Football or the A-Team on CBS or Thursday nights with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Like, I feel like they're not incorporating what let's say bachelor's degree level football fans are looking for, which is, hey, tell me what the percentage chance of them getting this 4th down are in real time. Should they not have that at their disposal, or am I just asking too much of the broadcast teams? I think we're at a point where we ought to be able to have that be a normal part of the conversation. Whereas Emily's saying, yeah, after the fact, I'm looking around for the numbers and nobody's providing them until after the fact.
I completely agree. They should have them. And in this day and age where you can bet from your seat, come on, those numbers have to be available. And, I think that people are educated enough that they want those numbers. If they're not talking about them on the broadcast, they should be scrolling them on the bottom. I'd rather have that than some of those scores, particularly in the first half of games on Sunday.
I don't give a shit about the Ravens and the Bengals. I want to know what the 4th down percentage is. Out of here.
Yeah, you hear it kind of in passing, right? You hear, the analytics, nerds would love this, or that sort of thing. You kind of hear it just, they say it in passing. But I will say, kind of peek behind the curtain sort of thing. There are positions in a booth. There's somebody called Talent Stats who's literally in charge of finding these runs and these numbers while they're actually calling the games. I know because I did that a lot in college, where especially with basketball, it's really hard for them to track runs in real time. And so that's something that I would to. And like I was, doing a multi-billion-dollar business deal would like slide the piece of paper to the table to the talent next to me. And that was something that they could call out loud. So that's definitely something that is available to them in a booth. And I think it would add a lot, especially what you said, Teresa, with betting. That's huge. And I think that as we start to see more of these broadcasters lean into that a little bit more, it used to be kind of like taboo. They would just walk around it and you were like, okay, I know. They're saying this kick is very important for some people out there. That was kind of your way of knowing that, yeah, they were a nod to betting. But yeah, I would love to know that sort of thing. I think analytics is blown up tremendously in the last couple of years. And so just to get a little bit more peek behind the curtain of what these coaches are looking at too, because a lot of them have embraced it and they're literally looking at numbers in this scenario, at this down and distance, this yardage, this point in the game, with this size of a quarterback, with how he's done in the past. They have those types of numbers. And so it'd be really interesting for us to learn that too in real time.
I just think the dismissal of, the nerds are the football nerds will love this. I just think that's a dismissal.
Always what they say though, right?
Oh, sure. But that just means to me, like, that's just a
it's not everyone.
A giant red flag to me saying, I'm not smart enough to understand the numbers. I don't care enough to take the time to understand what the numbers mean. That's all that says to me. Or that's all that says to me in real time, is they're just not taking the time to learn as much about the sport that they're calling than the rest of us are. Or really even, I mean, and not to be dismissive of places like, Music City Miracles or like Broadway Sports, but these guys are on it because they're passionate about these teams on a deeper level than probably the people sitting in the booth are. So that element of it tends to bother me a little more than maybe it should. But anyway. Speaking of being bothered, AJ Brown's bowels at this point, big talking point over the course of the. Come on, that was a good one. That was a good one, Teresa.
It was a good one, and I'm just thinking, I almost feel for Chipotle at this point because they've gotten some really bad pub in the last few days.
The chicken burrito is getting dragged through the streets the last couple of days.
He tweeted yesterday about how he was hurting and still in pain. And so the fact that he practiced fully on Friday is a very nice sign, I think, for him. But it's like, whoo, he said he had 3 IVs, around the Monday night game. Makes me wonder how many he's had in the past few days, because if that's been his issue, they've been having to hydrate him. He lost 8 pounds last weekend. Yeah. So, these athletes, it's like a fine tuning of Ferrari, particularly with receivers. So the fact that he's had that issue and it's continued, maybe they just installed a port to keep him hydrated, because I feel for the guy. And
okay, but can we be real for a second? Was AJ Brown breaking news to people that Chipotle can cause some stomach issues? Like this is not a new concept. Oh my gosh, you guys, if you eat Chipotle, you might feel a little sick afterwards.
All right. Well, thank you for very quickly removing any possibility that this podcast will be sponsored by Chipotle.
Oh, no, I like Chipotle. I think Chipotle is fine, but I'm saying, was he really breaking news to people that Mexican food can cause problems?
No, but for 8 days, at this point, I mean, my God, this is legitimately concerning, because it's like what Vrabel was talking about the week prior with Caleb Farley, right? It's not just that he's got an illness, it's the fact that it's affecting his weight and affecting his strength. And this is a dude in AJ Brown who very much, and to turn a potty joke serious, this is where he derives a lot of his ability when Mike Vrabel talks about play speed, when Mike Vrabel talks about play strength. If you are physically debilitated in this way and you got to go toe to toe with the honey badger, you're probably going to feel that a little bit if you're losing that much of your power, which is a huge part of your game, because he's not a straight line speed receiver. He's not just a possession receiver either. He's going to muscle you at the point of attack, and he's going to out physical you at the catch point. And for somebody who's already had issues with drops this year, I mean, how much more are you taking away from his game in this regard?
And conditioning. That was something that Mike Vrabel has brought up multiple times before this Chipotle incident even happened, is that as he works his way back out to the field and to play full games and to play the full snap count 100%, and he jokes with us, it's not going to be until week 10, but conditioning is a huge part of it too. He might be feeling, which is strange to say after he comes off a game where he has no catches in the first half and then explodes in the second half. So clearly the conditioning was fine there, but this isn't a good thing in terms of hoping that he adds more snaps to his snap count.
Exactly. He told us after the game on Monday night that, that he thought that it would take him a while to be himself. And that was, and then you add these several more days on top of it. All I can think is if you're the Titans, hope for a Michael Jordan flu type game on Sunday, that, he's able to, literally gut through this game on Sunday. So,
oh, boo, boo.
Oh, come on. It was right there. I played it where it lay.
She wrote that joke like 5 minutes ago and just had it ready to go. Just so excited for it.
How has this devolved into totally sophomoric bathroom humor? How? This is supposed to be a
I'm
professional
here, Buck.
podcast.
It's because of me. This happens every time. Although typically I thought it was Joe Rexroad, but God, I might be the problem. I'm scared.
I'm going to blame Emily.
I think that's a worthy scapegoat at this point, which is fitting because she looks the most professional out of all of us. All right, we'll wrap this up. Teresa's going to Jason Isbell at the Ryman tonight. Teresa, what are you pre-gaming with? What's your weapon of choice?
Well, I do like vodka. What are we talking about?
You going to the concert?
Yeah,
no, are you getting a full head of steam on before you go to the concert? Are you going to actually enjoy it like a normal sober person would?
No. We're Ubering down from, I'm meeting a friend. We're Ubering over. I will be pre-gaming for sure. Is it tequila? Is it vodka? I don't know. It might be the Frosé if it's that good. So all I know is that it's my night and I'm going to have a me night and I'm going to have a few beverages of adult type.
I'll tell you Teresa's drink of choice because we've done some Zoom happy hours. It's it's a seltzer, but then pouring vodka into the seltzer just to make it a little bit more potent.
Jesus
Am I right?
Christ, Teresa, that sounds like a car bomb.
Don't worry. This year I found an incredible spice rum. It's the best spice rum I've ever had. Siesta Key down in Florida. So of course there's only one place in the state of Tennessee to get it. But boy, you mix that with it's rum and Coke, but the spice, I was drinking some of that a week ago and kind of went through half a bottle in one night. So
rum's the only thing I can't do. I don't ever, even since
sunscreen.
College. What do you mean sunscreen?
It tastes like sunscreen.
Rum tastes like sunscreen?
No.
Yeah.
What have you been drinking?
Maybe I've been drinking the wrong rum.
Emily's out here with a $7 handle of like not Captain Morgan. What's the worst? Admiral Jerry or whatever. Sailor Jerry. Whatever I used to drink in college, because I did try it a couple times. But yeah, I would agree that tastes like sunscreen. Teresa Walker of the Associated Press has been kind enough to give us some of her time. Emily Proud, WKRN News 2. Of course, you can see both of these ladies and keep track of all of their coverage of the Tennessee Titans and all local sports teams, because I only have one focus. They have many, which is why we appreciate their insights and analysis here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Buck.
Thanks, Buck.